Okay. So, hello everyone. We are Dewi, Heru, and García. We are from the University of Western Ontario, and today's presentation we will be presenting about teacher presence on online language courses. Before we start presenting our topic, we would like to acknowledge what happened to the Muslim community last Sunday night. And in this presentation, we will focus on teacher presence and its main components. Then we will share with you some teacher presence techniques and some effective techniques implemented in the virtual setting. Finally, we will share with you our final reflections regarding the importance of teacher presence based on our teaching experience in the last academic year. So it is important to know what is the literature about the online teaching and to implement it an effective online course. So as you can see, we have the online teaching, which is as you can see, we have the community of inquiry framework. This is the theoretical framework that represents a process of creating a deep and meaningful learning experience through the development of three interdependent elements, such as social, cognitive, and teaching presence. Online teaching is, according to Garrison, Anderson, and Archer, it is a complex process that requires rethinking the role of the instructor, student interactions, and meaningful ways of learning. The community of inquiry that you see on the screen establishes and sustains online educational experiences through the development of interdependent elements, social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. Now, in 30 seconds, I would like you to write in the chat box what you think or about what makes an online synchronous language course effective. No one? You can write anything about effective online course. Okay, Juan Rocha just wrote interactivity. Anything else or anyone else would like to mention? Engagement. All right, so based on, okay, we have interactivity, engagement, connection, and positive atmosphere, and making students feel instructors care about them. That's right. So according to what all of you have said, I would like to briefly summarize that effective online teaching involves the teacher's presence, and it comprises four components such as the student's learning, the motivation and satisfaction, and also it comprises the way students feel, can have a sense of belonging in the online community. Now, we will pass to the next one, teacher presence. Oh, we have transparency also, that's right. You will see in transparency, Anna Bartosik just mentioned about transparency. So we would like to mention that it is important also in our reflections. Now, teacher presence is the design, facilitation, and direction of cognitive and social processes for the purpose of realizing personally meaningful and educationally worthwhile learning outcomes, according to Anderson, Rourke, and Garrison. Now, we have three key components of teacher presence, such as course design, facilitation, and direct instruction. Garrison and Anderson refer to the design, to the first one, the course design, as the structural decisions made before the process begins, and organization as the similar decisions made to adjust to changes in the learning teaching transaction. On the other hand, facilitation is concerned with the way students can actively engage through discussions, and direct instruction is most often associated with specific content issues. When teacher presence happens, it is not only in the time we share with the students in our online courses, but it also starts before and also occurs outside the classroom time. So as you can see, teacher presence can happen through designing an online course, encouraging a positive and supporting environment, selecting appropriate teaching methods, and creating a meaningful instructor-student interactions. Also, teacher presence is so important because it contributes to student learning, motivation and satisfaction, student retention, and sense of belonging to a learning community, as some of you mentioned it in the chat box. Now, we have some teacher presence techniques. As we mentioned it before, the three main components of teacher presence are course design, facilitation, and direct instruction. And these are the techniques that we can implement in each of those. So for course design, we have setting curriculum, designing methods, and establishing time parameters. For facilitation, we have developing a sense of trust and safety, explicit and detailed discussion of criteria, and encouraging, acknowledging, and reinforcing students' contributions. For direct instruction, we have presenting content and questions, focusing the discussion, and confirming understanding.
So
Now, Anna will talk about effective techniques in virtual settings.
what I'll be sharing with you some of the techniques that we have been using during the past year in our online synchronous courses. So as a summary, we use memes, we use names, backgrounds on Zoom, compassion, emotional bank, and etiquette. And I'll explain each of these a little more in detail. For memes, here I put two examples in English for everyone to understand, but we ask our students to create memes and share them with the rest of the class. So, of course, our memes were in Spanish and they were created from our own students. It is a little homework that they do and it's very effective because they feel part of the class. The meme on the right was created by Sari, and she used it in her classes. So, you can always use, and I think it's very encouraging for students to use that. You create your own meme, you share them with your students as an example, and then they feel more motivated to keep creating memes. And this brings a lot of engagement to our online classrooms. Another of the uses that we have been doing with our students, Sari, can you pass to the next slide, please?
Can I interrupt you a second? We only see one part of your screen, of your PowerPoint. So we miss half of the meme. We don't see the left and bottom part.
Yeah, sorry, your PowerPoint is not centered.
No, your PowerPoint, like everybody.
Yeah,
Shari is the one
I'm sharing the screen. So,
okay, yeah.
Can you excuse me a second?
Because it's a pity now that you get into the images. I know, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting the flow of your
no, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
very good presentation, but before it was easier to follow with the explanation, but
Sorry,
now.
Can you see now the presentation?
Yeah, this way we can. Worst case, let's try and go in presenter mode from now.
Yeah. So, but we see the notes too this way. But
you see the notes this way?
Yeah, but that's okay.
Presenters mode. Right?
No, try the presenters mode now.
All right.
And we see if it improves.
Yeah,
perfect. We see it perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, so next slide, Sari, please. Another of the tools that we've been using this year with our students is, I always use that with my students when we start the class, because this is what we teach is Spanish as a second language. We ask them if they wanna use a Spanish name during our class. And that is very motivating. Most of my students always want to, have a Spanish name, and we'll keep using that during their whole undergraduate program with us. Others, they want to keep their name. So this is something we use all the time. And I think they really engage students in classrooms. On the right, you can see two images of myself in my classes. I use a lot of change my background. This is something that, of course, it was new for me this year, like for all of us using Zoom all the time. And on the first one, I used I was in a jail because I was trying to bring I had a talk with one of my students, and he said that he was feeling very isolated. He was in Toronto in his room for so long and not having any interaction. So that brought me the idea to share when we came to class and talk about our feelings, how they can express how they feel, supported by images in Zoom. It was easier this time that we were online than when we are in class to do this. And the second one is I'm in my home city in Spain, Salamanca, and I use that background when I talk about culture and, to more specific things about the Spanish culture in our classes. Another of the techniques that we've been using a lot this year is compassion. Compassion, we need to foster empathy and compassion with our students, especially during the last year. We didn't know what everyone was going through. The only thing that we saw was sometimes a face, if they share their camera with us, sometimes not even that. And we don't know what is going on their lives. Sometimes, they have a lot of family around. They cannot connect because they don't feel comfortable sitting in the class because everything that is they are surrounded by. So we really work really hard with empathy and compassion during last year. And that is something that we stressed a lot. Another one of our techniques was the emotional bank. The emotional bank account refers to trust, not to money. And it is about feeling safe with another person or group. And I remember when I was younger that we have this game that you have to fall in the arms of people and trust that they were gonna hold you, So this is the same thing moved to the class. With the emotional bank, the teachers build credit just by making their interactions with the students positive. And we can do that by very simple things like asking them how was their weekend, how they are feeling with COVID, just little activities, or we can just build in like more creative activities to build this trust, which is very, very important for the students. And lastly, one thing that we used a lot was netiquette. You all know what netiquette is. And what I believe is that this year, Zoom was very new to all of us. And although I taught online courses, but completely asynchronous before, this time, this new modality of online synchronously needed to create some netiquette. And the way we approached this was creating the netiquette rules with our students at the beginning of the year. We created the rules all together. And then, of course, during the year, we revisited the rules and made some modifications and adjust them to the new environment. And they feel part of the class. They feel that, they have something to say and they engage in the class more that way. So now I'm gonna pass it back to Sari.
3 minutes, you got 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our final personal reflections, teachers' reflections, were based on our experience in the last academic year and on our conversations with the students regarding their experience. So for the reflections regarding teacher presence, we can see that it comprises 4 components: students' learning, motivation and satisfaction, success in learning outcomes, and sense of belonging. So as teachers, we realized that for students' learning, it was quite difficult in Zoom to retain the information and to improve their students' learning. So in that way, it was very important to implement translation games to improve fast recall, and also to create interactive activities such as mafia games, and flashcards, among other interactive activities. Regarding the motivation and satisfaction, we realized that the teacher's energy and enthusiasm was quite important. It made a huge impact on students' motivation and satisfaction, and also the teacher's caring attitude, because it made them feel like they were a part of the group. Also, we would like to highlight about the participation. For some of the students in Zoom, it was kind of fun to interact in the main session, while for others, they found it intimidating, especially when they had to speak in front of everyone, especially in front of the native students, so they felt intimidated. So in this part, it was very important for the teacher to tell them that everyone is allowed to make mistakes, and we learn from the mistakes. We learn from the mistakes, and no one is more than anyone. We all have our own learning processes. Now, regarding the success in learning outcomes, we realize also that real social interactions through breakout rooms or social media among students, it was quite important, because in that way they could help each other and support each other before attending classes, or when reviewing concepts, or when they wanted to study for the exams or for the quizzes, or to make the activities, to create the activities for the classes. And the last component, the sense of belonging, we found something magical when we put our cameras on, because in that way, students can see our facial expressions, and we can see their facial expressions as well. We can see their mood, if they are motivated or not, and we can also let them, in order to feel this sense of belonging, let them alone working in the breakout room. So in that way, they can create their own friendships through, and start asking others their social media. So in that way, they can strengthen the sense of community. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, do not hesitate